Okay, welcome everyone today for today's Flash lesson CS6, lesson 10, which is on how to publish Flash documents. So I'm just going to show you how to do this lesson here. So I'm going to come over to Start. Okay, so now you go to the Start folder. There's 3 Flash files. So I'm just going to go to the Start banner and just going to click on this one. Okay. Now this is on Flash CS6, okay? So it's slightly different from CS5, which doesn't show you the tutorials on how to do the mobile development. Okay, so over here we have our first one, which is Start banner. And I'm just going to open up the other 2 more files, which is the restaurant guide. Okay, so the next one is the restaurant guide over here. So I'm going to show all. And the third one would be over here, which is the mobile app. Okay, so I'm going to do a show all. Okay, so this is what we got to do. Okay, so now these are very simple projects. Okay, each have different stage dimensions. So let's look at the properties for each project here. Now notice over here in this project over here, now this is a simple banner advertisement over here. And if we go to the properties inspector over here and we look over here. Now over here, notice that the target is Flash Player 11.2. If we scroll down, you can actually show that you can target your project for different platforms. So you can go all the way down to older platforms like Flash Player 5, or even the newer Flash platforms like 11.4, or you can even go to Air, Android, or Flashlight. Okay, so we'll just leave this as it is. If you go to the restaurant guide, notice it says Air 3.2 for desktop. So using this application, you can actually create Windows applications where you can give it to people on a CD or, for example, on a thumb drive and let people run it. Of course, nowadays with today's cloud-based environment and always connected internet connection, it's very rare for people to use application for desktop. Though it is sometimes useful, especially for people who run programs offline. And for example, there are certain types of applications where there's a lot of computing power needed. So you might want to get it give it to people to run it on their PCs or whatever, instead of running it through the browser, which needs a lot of bandwidth, and sometimes they might be viewing it on their mobile browser. Okay, and of course nowadays, again, the other problem is most mobile devices don't support Flash. So in fact, actually to cater for that development, Adobe recommends you to get this thing called the Create.js plugin, or plugin for your Flash environment, so that you'll be able to create HTML5 applications using Adobe Flash. But you cannot convert an application within Flash into HTML5. You have to start from scratch. Okay, so let's go to the last one, which is the mobile app. And notice it's Air 3.2 for Android, but you can also target it for iOS devices. So you can actually write your iPhone programs for iPhone. Now, okay, so before we get to completed Flash files, normally what you do is you test your application. So the way to test your application is just come here. Okay, you come over here to test movie, and you just choose test over here, which is Command Enter or Control Enter on the Windows. Command Enter is for your Mac platform. So normally what you do is that you create a storyboard. Okay, so for your assignments, for example, you create a storyboard first on paper before you do it in Adobe Flash. Okay. So use your storyboard, you have a written description, and then you can just test it and compare it with what you've storyboarded. So for example, this is our application over here. So notice, this is your Flash banner. Okay, so as your movie plays, you compare it to your checklist. Okay, what is it supposed to happen? You click on the buttons and everything. Okay. For movies that play with Flash Player, you can choose File, Publish Preview, okay, default HTML. Okay, I'm going to show you this part over here. Notice you actually create a HTML file, I believe. So file, sorry, so over here, I'm just going to come over here. So I come here, File, Publish Preview, default HTML. Okay, so actually try to publish this banner into the web browser, and you notice over here, it actually creates these two files. See, 128 today, start banner HTML and start banner. You actually do the test files for you over here. And so using this way, you can actually test it before you upload it to your web server. Now, you must try to understand that in publishing, right, it creates the files that you need for your final Flash project to be available. So you must understand the difference between author time and runtime. So if you remembered back in our lesson on armatures and in the inverse kinematics, there was the author time animation and your runtime animation, where you could allow users to move your octopus at runtime. That means when it's being played back. Okay, so currently, since it's CS6, the latest version is Adobe Flash Player 11.4. Now, what is Air, by the way? Air is a runtime environment for you so that you can actually run your program on people's computers, like your Windows environments or your Apple Macintosh environments, if they do not have a browser. So it runs as if it was you wrote a program in its native platform, and then you can run on these devices. You can also, of course, as I showed you, can develop applications for use on Android and for iOS. Okay, so to determine how Flash publishes the SWF file, okay, including which version, okay, so let's look at this file here. So we go to File, Publish Settings, okay, and we notice over here, okay, so there are all sorts of settings over here, okay. So and over here you can see that it creates a HTML wrapper. Okay, what this means that it actually creates a HTML file for you, so you can take you can embed it into your web page. So for example, you create a web page and you want some Flash animation, you can actually take some of the code here. If we look at this start banner here, okay, now I'm going to open up with my, let me see, let's just take a text editor like Vim. I always prefer Vim. You can see that there's actually HTML code, and you can actually copy this part of the code into your HTML file. This part of your HTML code into your HTML file, so you can embed it into your HTML document. So again, later when you do your, for example, your final year project, you can actually put in Flash animation into the web page. So it'll actually tell you what all the stuff that it will put in for you. Okay. When you go to your Flash settings here, you can change the name of the file that you want to save it as. Also, change the name of your Swift file. So you want to change it to something else. For example, you can change it to my assignment, for example. You can change the file that's output. And that's how it's going to give. So you can put like version 1 or version 2 or something like that. Or one is for this client or that client. Or one is for mobile, one is for desktop, one is for Mac, that sort of thing. Okay, what other settings can you put? You can change the JPEG quality over here. So notice over here you can change the JPEG quality. So you want to change the quality, you can just increase the value here. So if 80 is sort of like medium. You want to increase the quality, put it to 100, or lower, put it to 15, 20%. Okay, so the better quality of JPEG, the higher it is, the better looking it will be. But of course, the bigger the download it will be for your users. So you think your users are low bandwidth users, For example, you might want to lower the JPEG quality. You can also control the quality of your audio. You can set it to be 16 kilobits per second or 18 kilobits per second, or set it to mono or to low, medium quality, fast, medium, best. Change the bit rate, that sort of thing. Okay, so again, if it's stereo, there's more data to be transferred, obviously, because there's 2 channels instead of 1. The higher the bit rate, the more data there'll be, of course. So always thing is, anything that is better will always increase the data rate that is received by the user. So again, it's a balance between bandwidth available and quality. Okay, so what else is there? Okay, now what we can also do is that we can go to advanced here. So there's actually the deflate LZMA. So you can actually choose to compress the movie or not to compress. Obviously, if you compress it, it'll increase the compression and allow us to download your Flash animation quicker. Okay, so you can also include XMP data, in which you can include information about your animation. Okay, so you can include information like, for example, now I click the spanner here, you can put what's the title, who's the author, what's the rating. You can put keywords so that people can give keywords. You can even include things like GPS data, video data, things like that, title, artists, all sorts of data that you can put in. Okay. Okay, so that's what we got. You can also choose LZMA for better swift compression. Of course, you'll see artifacts. Okay, and okay, so what else? Okay, what about here? For HTML, we can create HTML for Flash, HT for Pocket PC, name anchors, things like that, and image map. We can even choose detect Flash version. Okay, what version it is to be. So, so if we choose detect Flash version, you can choose. Okay, so say I need it to be the latest Flash version because there's different type of features that I want to. They must be in it, or else if it's not there, I can't play it. So let's say I publish it. Okay, I'm going to click it. So notice now there's the file is created over here, and there's actually the start banner here that's created, and I click on it. It will load it. If I click on it, you load this file over here. Okay, and notice when I change the name of the Swift file, it actually creates a Swift file over here. Okay. Okay, now notice there's actually one more file here which is called Swift Object.js that will detect the specified Flash player version. Okay, so if your browser does not have the earliest Flash player version you put in for your version, it will actually give you a message. So you need all 3 files, 1, 2, 3 files. These Swift object files here. Okay, let me just show you one more time how it works. Okay, so let me just delete this file here, Swift object.js. I'm gonna come here and delete this file as well. So I'm gonna show you one more time. Okay, so over here, so this is Swift file, my assignment. Just come here and choose my assignment. Okay, so my assignment .html. Okay, just go click on publish. So notice 1, 2, 3 files have been created. Okay, Swift object says April 8th, even though today is May 13th, it's because it probably just copies it from some location in which I installed my Flash. Okay, so what else can we do? Okay, now for Flash, we can change our display settings. Okay, so now we got to come back over here to our Flash. Okay, and Okay, so actually flash over here. And we're gonna select our H, and we're gonna choose match movie, okay, at the exact stage, okay. Okay, so for pixels, okay, we gotta change the pixels. Okay, so instead of 955 by, okay, I'm gonna set the width. Okay, hold on, so hold on, so I'm gonna check. Over here. So if I choose pixels, for example, so for example, I choose pixels, I can choose maybe I want it to be smaller. So maybe I want it to be, let's say 900, okay, let's say 500 pixels. 500 by 200. Okay, let's publish it. So let's look at it again. So notice our size of our animation is in a smaller part of our page over here. So you can actually change the size. Or if instead you don't know how many pixels, so we go to percent. Okay, so match movie goes back to normal. So I go to percent. Maybe I want it to be 50% and 50%. So publish one more time. So I go back over here to my assignment, and it changes size to 50% of the original size of our animation. Okay, so what else can we do? Okay, we can go over to scale and alignment. Okay, let's go back to match movie. Okay, and we gotta select default show all. Okay, this one will fit the movie in the browser window without any distortions. So let's go back to default one. Let's go and show everything again. So let's open up this one. So this is our normal one. Comes out to be something like this. Okay, so instead of scale, okay, so it's scale. So we choose percent for size, and then we choose no border. Okay, to scale the movie. Okay, so it scales it without any distortion, but with cropping of the content to fill the window. So let's try this one again and see what happens. Publish. Okay, so notice it fills up the whole screen. Okay, so it fills up the whole screen, and well, it crops out the left and right. Okay, so it fills it in the center over here. So that's for percent and scale no border. Okay, so another way is percent for size and choose exact fit. Scale the movie to fill the browser. But this one, when you do this, there'll be okay. So when you do this, okay, I'm just gonna publish and show you what happens. So come over here, go to my assignment, and notice what happens when we fit to window. It shows the whole animation, but it actually distorts it so that it fills the whole window. So notice it fills the whole window. So what if I do this? So if I move it here. If I move it here, it actually scales to fit the whole window over here. Okay, so that's percent exact fit. Okay, so let's choose a percent and choose no scale. Let's try this one. Let's try this and see what happens here. So percent no scale, publish, and what happens is that it fills the middle of our screen. Okay, it keeps it constant no matter how big our web browser is. Okay, so that's how it does. Okay, so so we can also change our playback settings. Okay, so there are several options. So come back over here, HTML wrapper, and we are going to go to the playback pause at start. To have the movie pause at the first frame. Okay, we can deselect loop, so it plays only once. And we deselect display menu. so that when we right click, it doesn't show the flash movie. So let's publish it. And let's see what happens over here. So notice the animation comes up, but nothing happens. And if I right click, I can't even play it. So let's come back over here. And I'll just click display menu over here. Publish one more time. And let's just open our file again. Now it doesn't play at all, right? But if I right click, there is actually a menu here and I'm going to click play. And now the thing starts playing. Of course, if you choose don't play, right, what you should do is actually don't play, so put a button somewhere on the stage so that only when the user clicks on the button, the animation starts. Okay, so this goes, so that's display menu, and of course loop means that you keep on playing over and over and over again. So normally you do that maybe for a banner advertisement, maybe, depending on how you design your banner advertisement. Of course, you don't want it to be too irritating with sound and music. Okay, so that is, okay, so what we got to do is maybe we choose this one and go to choose loop and display menu, and let's see what happens here. So there it is. So there we have our menu again. Because it takes a long time to finish its animation actually. Okay, so that's some of the options that we have for our publish settings. So now we got to understand the next thing, which is our bandwidth profiler. Okay, so when we do this, for example, okay, we got to go control. Okay, let's just cancel this whole thing. Control test movie, and we do a test. Okay, notice over here when we do a test, there's this portion over here. This is called the bandwidth profiler. It gives you information like, for example, what is the width and height of our flash animation, what's the frame rate, what's the size, how long is it, how many frames, 108 frames or 3.6 seconds, preload for 60 frames, what's the bandwidth, okay, and it shows us the bandwidth requirements at every stage part of our animation here. Okay, so so you can view the bandwidth in several ways. So choose view. So it's over here, bandwidth profiler is over here. So if it wasn't on, you can always come here, choose bandwidth profiler. And you can also view it frame by frame or as a streaming graph. So you can choose, see how much is it as a streaming graph. Okay. Now the streaming graph indicates how the movie downloads over the web. Okay, by showing how the data streams from each frame, whereas the frame by frame shows the amount of data in each frame. So using the streaming graph, you can see which frames will cause hang-ups by noting which bar exceeds the given width, the bandwidth. So for example, if your limit is 4.4 kilobytes per second, these few frames will cause problems. Of course, so that means we should try to get a minimum of 32 kilobytes per second. Okay, so you can also choose, you can also test your performance in different environments. So you can choose view, and you can actually do things like download settings. So for example, we can change it to DSL. Those, for example, people use DSL. So as DSL is for those people who use broadband via their telephone lines, but it's not dial-up. It's a DSL. DSL broadband connection. Okay. Okay. So, and you can see that, and then for that we can do a simulation of how you feel that if the person has a low bandwidth, this type of bandwidth, how the animation will feel like. So notice how slow and jerky it is. So this simulates if the person is using a DSL connection. Of course, for those of us here who live in Singapore, most of our connection is pretty good. So we don't get, especially if using, well, basically anyone who has a home connection or in the office, your internet connection is pretty good. The only reason why maybe you want to do this if the person is using maybe, for example, a 3G connection on his phone, and 3G connection can be pretty spotty at times, especially in built-up areas. So you can also choose a download setting. For example, you're using T1, and you can do a different simulation. So you can see that it's faster and smoother, okay? So let's close this one. Okay, so now the next thing you can do about this is that you can add metadata to our information, to our Flash file. So we go to File, go to Publish Settings. Again, notice over here there's Include XMP Metadata. Okay, so over here, Flash SWF, click on this spanner, and notice you can add this dialog box. There's this dialog box that opens. So we can come over here and come over to Description. And you can even put information here, for example, welcome to Meridian. And in keywords, you can put in here things like Meridian, Meridian City, relocation, tourism, travel, urban, visitor guide, vacation, city, entertainment. Now this is useful if in case there are some web crawlers that can read your Swift files, for example. And you can actually do some search engine optimization. Okay, so I'm going to click on this and then click OK, and then I'm going to click Publish. And let's see what happens over here. So notice over here, there's this thing over here. I'm going to click on this. Pardon me. I'm still suffering from a cough. Now notice there's animation here. I'm going to view the source. I hope it's in the page. Now does it put the information here? No, it doesn't put it over here. So actually what it does is it puts the meta information inside the SWF file itself. So it's inside the SWF file. So let me see. So I'm going to open up my Vim. Okay. So I'm going to put it into my Swift file over here. Other keywords here, wow, it's pretty hard for you to find. Okay, let's look for Meridian. No, it can't be found. So I'm not sure how it puts it in, but it's probably compressed into the file. So, oh well, so I guess the search engine probably has to read the Swift file itself. Okay, I'm not sure how it does it, but it's supposed to be there. Okay, so that's optimizing for web applications. So what about when we want to create files for desktop applications? So now notice this is our restaurant guide that came from our previous lesson. Okay. Now, what it does that we can actually publish an application for somebody to install it on their computers as if it was like your Microsoft Office application, or it was like even your Adobe Flash application. And it's called a projector. Okay, so it's basically a standalone file which includes Flash Player, because, for example, some people might not have the latest Flash Player installed, or they might not even have Flash Player installed on the computer. So it outputs it as an AIR file, AIR file, okay, and installs it onto the desktop. So let's look at our file publish settings again for this file. Okay, so okay, over here, okay, actually we're gonna use our start banner. Okay, so let's come over here So go publish settings. Okay, so instead of Flash or HTML, we're going to choose Win and Mac projector. Okay, so I'm going to show you my Finder file here. Okay, so notice over here on my lesson 6. Okay, there is no exe file and no app file here, okay? So I'm just going to come over here, output. So notice there's app file and .exe file. So I'm just going to publish right now. Okay, so notice there are two files that are created over here, the .app file and .exe file. So since I'm using a Mac, okay, I'm going to show you my Launchpad. So notice there is no file for our project here. Okay, for my thing here. So I'm going to come back to my Flash. I'm going to install this program now. So I'm just going to double click this one. So notice it runs as an app file. And that's it. So and does it install it as an app here? Does it? Okay, it doesn't. Okay. So notice it runs as an app file. Okay. So you don't need a browser to run this program anymore. Okay, just to tell you a bit. Okay, if you're using TLF documents, so make sure that in your settings over here in your advanced action script settings. So let's say you come over here. Okay, and in your action script settings over here, properties. Okay, so this is your thing over here. You got action script settings. Now, if you're creating something that has your text layout over here, choose merged into code so that it will be loaded into code in case the user does not have it. Okay, so remember that, put it into merged into code if you use TLF text. Okay, so that's about projectors. So now let's go back to our restaurant guide. Now this is slightly different. Okay, it's not in your CS5 tutorial, it's in your CS6 tutorial. Now notice it's targeted for the desktop. Now if you click on the range application here, you can see that there's actually some settings over here. It says profile, desktop, mobile, extended desktop, extended mobile device, extended TV. Now the output file shows the name as a start restaurant guide.air. It's an air file. So it shows you how to create an air package. You can also create it as a Mac installer, so you can allow the user to install it on your Mac. And it can also be embedded as a application with runtime embedded without an installer or the need for air runtime already installed. Okay, so for name we call it Meridian Restaurant Guide. Okay, make sure it's Meridian Restaurant Guide. And we can even choose the Windows style custom Chrome transparent over here. We go to signature, and what we do is that we choose use a code signing certificate. Now if we don't have a certificate, we just create a new one. Now a certificate allows you to create an application, because without a certificate, your computer is quite wary of what sort of applications are installed on your program. So we've got to create one new one. Of course, if you're a real bona fide developer, you get a real certificate from Apple developers so that it will be installed as a certified application. So for publisher name, we got to click on here, Meridian Press, Organization Unit Digital. organization name will be interactive. Okay, and password. Okay, we got to use the most common password in the world, which is password. Okay, for folder, press save it in the folder of my choice, which is over here, which is in my Nicodemus folder. Okay, we're going to put in 10 start. And I'll just put it and click save. Okay. So notice it creates a certificate over here. So I'm going to put the password. Remember the password. Make sure timestamp is checked. Okay, so now I'm going to change the icon, air settings. So I'm going to come over here to the icons over here. So over here I can just create and choose an icon. So notice I can actually choose an icon over here. So I can come on app icons and I can choose this restaurant guide and choose this as my icon over here. So this will allow us to create an icon. Now go to advanced. Okay, and over here there are initial settings, so I'm going to click here X0 and Y50, maximizable, minimizable, resizable, and visible. Okay, so that's it, and I'm going to just click on publish. So notice now it's publishing, actually publishing installer. Okay. So now I've got it. Okay, notice over here there is no restaurant guide here in my applications. Now if I go over here in my start folder. Okay, so where is my banner over here? So let's look at our application here. So notice there's a restaurant guide here, .air. So if I double click on this one, okay, so this is how you create an installer. So you can actually create a program that can install. Of course, it says there's unknown identity because our certificate was self-signed, so it's definitely a security risk. If you're publishing it for your Mac, you get go to Apple developer and get a certificate there. You can install. Okay, and continue, start application. And there we have it. So notice this is our application over here. So remember this one? Over here, over here. Okay, so that's it. So we can just come here and just quit the Meridian restaurant guide. Now if we look in our apps folder, notice there's a restaurant guide in our apps folder here. Okay, the final part is on how to publish for your mobile device. So when we come over here, notice there's a Start Mobile app here. Okay, so this is a simple application. I'm going to just zoom in a bit, 100%. So this is our application that creates a mobile device, the target device for A3.2 for Android. So we got to just test it out. Test movie in Air Bug Debug the Launcher Mobile. So notice now it actually simulates a mobile device. So you can actually tilt. Oh, Test movie again. So was there a bug? Okay, so we've got over here. So now we can go to touch and gesture. So we create a touch layer and we choose swipe. So we can actually simulate this application as if it was a mobile application. Okay, so notice it actually behaves as if it was a mobile application. Okay, so that's creating a mobile app. Now, to create a mobile app, actually, you will need a few things. Actually, if you actually want to, for example, deploy it to an iPhone device, you actually go to Publish Settings. Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna change the Publish Settings to iOS instead. And you can actually change the name. You can change your portrait, auto orientation, iPhone, iPad. You need a certificate. Now, use an iOS certificate, you need to have a developer license, which you can get from Apple. It costs about $99 for a year, but which you can deploy it, test it on up to 100 devices. Okay, you can create icons, languages, that sort of thing, and you can even deploy it all the way to the App Store itself. Okay, so you need a certificate and a provisioning profile. So I change it back to Android. So Android will be slightly different, I think. So you need this certificate, but slightly different for the Android market, for example. Okay, the final part. Okay, we need to learn how to keep our projects organized. So notice there's a project panel over here. Okay, so so we gotta come over here to the top and we gotta create a new project. And we gotta call it Animation Web. For the root folder, we gotta just choose the create a folder, and we got to go to the start folder here, the classroom in the book, lessons, go to lesson 10, start, and we got to create a new folder, and we got to call it my project. Okay, the thing is my project is already been taken, so I call my project 2. Okay, now I'm going to create my project. Okay, so I've got Animation Web 2. So you notice it creates two files, Animation Web and out-of-time shared assets. Now what it does is it allows you to share assets between your different files, flash files. So notice there's Animation Web 2 here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to create a new symbol over here. So where are my tools? So I'm going to choose my tools over here. Where are my tools? Okay, so over here, these are my tools over here. Okay, so over here, I'm just going to create a rectangle. Okay, and I'm going to select it and I'm going to make it slightly different so that maybe the stroke is slightly thicker. Okay, so let's say this is our project. So I'm going to convert this to a symbol. I'm going to call it rect shared. So now in my library, there's this file called rect shared. So I'm going to do a link. So that means I can share this symbol across files. Now in my project panel, I am going to create a new file. And I'm going to call it animation mobile 2. And then for the target, I'm going to choose Air 3.2 for Android and create file. Now, since we've already created the symbol, we don't want to redo our work that we've already created. So we got to edit. So we got to just go to project panel and we got to look at this one. We got to double click the author time shared assets, FLA. Okay, notice this is in our library here. So let's go back to our animation mobile. You can come on top here, we can choose animation, author time shared assets. So notice we can actually share symbols between files. So we can actually drag this one over here and notice that this is over here. And notice over here now we go back to animation mobile 2. Rect shared is over here inside our library. Now, what can we do with this? Now, the interesting thing is that we can actually make edits in the symbol and it will be reflected in the other file. Okay, so let's just edit this file. So let's come to this file over here. And we got to just change the rectangle. For example, I'm going to change the fill to maybe blue. So now it's blue here. So let's go over here to our, here, okay, so make sure it's linked. Okay, so I forgot to link it. Okay, so in order for it to link, it will change. So let's come back over here. I'm going to change this again. So I'm going to change it to maybe gray again. Okay, so gray. So come over here. Now if I come over here, I'm going to save this. So notice our mobile changes as well. So you make a change in this file, it will be updated over here. So that's about it for this tutorial. Thank you very much. And see you in our next part, which is ActionScript 3.0 for Adobe Flash CS5.